welcome to today's online gathering. I'm Lori Ferguson with South Central Economic Development District, and I am your tour guide for today, though I feel like I have failed many of you who were in for the opening in our chat time. But anyway, over the last few months, you have grown accustomed to hearing my voice as we launch our monthly webinars, and so today I wanted to change it up a little bit. And I've invited Levi Adam, who is the Deputy Director here at SCED, and he will get us started. So, Levi?
Okay, thank you. It did not sound like an invite, but nevertheless, welcome to our July edition of our HomeNE webinar series. We're excited to have Andy Long from the McCook Economic Development Corporation here today on the timely topic of leadership. Andy, that's 2 speaking engagements in a row for you.
Back to back.
You have arrived. So 5 first-time participants today, so that's exciting. And over the course of our HomeNE webinars, that's 99 communities represented across Nebraska. So it's exciting to see our network, your network grow, and we're really excited about that part. So looking at our agenda for today, first we're going to hear from Andy, and we'll provide time for questions after he gets done. So ask him any questions you want, and then we'll have a little time for a group discussion and final thoughts. So before I turn it over to Lori, I just want to remind everybody, please, as Andy's speaking, if you have a pen and paper, please write down your questions, and feel free to ask them directly to Andy or put them in the chat box. The main thing is that if you're asking questions, if you have a question, put it in there and we can all learn together. And that's how this program will be the most beneficial. So we definitely invite any questions you may have. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Lori.
Okay, thanks, Levi. And it was an invitation, so I just want to clarify that, okay? So, but once again, let me say good afternoon to all of you and welcome to July's edition of our 2019 HomeNE webinar series. Sharon is away enjoying some family time, and this is usually the part that she gets to do. So I'm going to just kind of roll us into the afternoon by saying that HomeNE is a learning network that's geared toward housing in our rural communities, and HomeNE provides face-to-face and online opportunities to foster interaction, engagement, and skill building for local leaders and conveners. As we discovered in Schuyler last month, you don't have to be an elected official to be a leader and convener. And we also learned that we learn best when we learn together. So that's really encapsulates what HomeNE is intended to be, a learning environment for everyone. So HomeNE was established in 2017 and consists of monthly webinars such as the one today and 2 events that we call gatherings each year. You can see the location of webinar series participants over the last 18 months. And as Levi mentioned, the network continues to grow, and we are 1 community away from having 100 communities represented over the past 18 months in our webinars and gatherings. We have somebody from Osmond joining us today up in the northeast part of the state, as well as some of our friends from South Dakota. So welcome to each of you, and thank you for your participation in the HomeNE network. We here at South Central do act as the lead agent for HomeNE, and we want it to empower you, the participants, to apply what you learned today. So today we're going to be joined by Andy Long of the McCook Economic Development Corporation. And Andy grew up in Grant, Nebraska, son of a 3rd-generation funeral director, attended college in Lincoln, and as an educator, he taught high school social studies as well as coached basketball in both Big Springs and Cozad. Other career interests, he has served as a training manager for the Gallup polls. And then at some point in there, he returned to the level of higher education and was the Dean of Enrollment Management for Northeastern Junior College in Sterling, Colorado, as well as the campus vice president of McCook Community College. So, and then he left education and became the economic development director in McCook about 1 year ago, he said. So married, 3 kids, ages 11, 7, and 2. So I'm not sure when you find time to do everything you do, Andy, but he also wanted me to let you know that he secretly has a man crush on NPR's marketplace host Kai Rizdal. Is that correct, Andy?
Yeah, man, that guy, his voice, the stories they tell are just fantastic.
Okay, well, maybe you can fill us in a little bit more in detail on that man crush there. But before I hand Andy the reins, I wanted to ask a question. You can see Andy's professional picture there. When I was speaking with Andy, I asked him for a picture that we could share so you would know who your speaker was, and he sent me the professional picture that you see there. But he also sent me another one. So this picture is the perfect, I just laughed when I saw this. I couldn't believe it. So I had to use this, and with his permission, we are. It's the perfect picture to the topic of today. Andy, is it correct to say that leadership has been around since the prehistoric days of the dinosaur?
It's a roaring topic for us today, so
Okay.
we got to get after it.
And the old caveman mentality of command and control style of leadership is probably no longer effective. Is that true as well?
Very much so.
Okay. Well, we're all looking forward to hearing you and your thoughts on leadership. So welcome to the HomeNE Learning Network, Andy. And with that, go ahead.
Sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. Really appreciate everything South Central does. You know, Sherry helps me out on another grant program I'm involved with, and she saves my bacon so many times. We work with CJ here out of West Central Ogallala, and if you're not in the economic development world, you really maybe don't quite understand everything the development district does, but all the things that need to happen behind the scenes for progress to happen, really we see the developmental districts happening. So really appreciate the work you guys do. I want to start with a poem because I just don't think we get enough poetry in the HomeNE series. And I was going to use the poem Always We Hope, but I used that yesterday at the Governor's Summit. I think there's a few returners, and so I want to give you some new material today because all my jokes will be the same from yesterday. But the poem I want to start with is called The Contract, A Word from the Lead. It said, and in the end, we follow them, not because we are paid, not because we might see some advantage, not because of the things they've accomplished, not even because of the dreams they dream, but simply because of who they are. The man, the woman, the leader, the boss, standing up there when the wave hits the rock, passing out faith and confidence like life jackets. Knowing the currents, holding the doubts, imagining the delights and terrors of every landfall. Captain, pirate, and parent by turns, the bearer of our countless hopes and expectations. We give them our trust. We give them our effort. What we ask in return is that they stay true. And I think, and we heard speakers at the Governor's Economic Summit yesterday, from Jim Clifton to the governor, just saying really change happens one community at a time. State programs, federal programs are great, but it's when communities decide to change is when communities move forward there. And I think it is so important that we are moving forward as all our rural communities because there's a lot of challenges we face. Talked a little bit about the different experience, was in high school education, worked for the Gallup polls, and, pretty much I'm up for anything. Here's a picture. We did I had a college leadership group, and one of the fundraisers we did was for $1, you could buy a piece of duct tape and tape me to the wall. And if you do that for 10 minutes, it's a great fundraiser. If you do it for half an hour, you almost pass out. So if you're thinking about doing that at home, stick with 10 minutes on it there. But I've always been fascinated with the study of leadership. And I think it was from seeing my dad serve as mayor when I was in grade school. And all I saw was our city manager, John Mathis, would come about once every couple of weeks in his old green pickup, and they'd talk about a few things. But from early on, I saw that community leadership modeled. And even more, I think it's so important because our communities are changing. The factors that our communities face changing. We were looking at a innovation grant on housing, and as we did some of our research, we found that in our rural areas here in Southwest Nebraska, a lot of stick-built housing was going to be between 180 to 220 a square foot. And you look at those costs, and it's you almost can't even do that on a private basis. And so community leadership, it's going to get your younger professionals engaged. It's going to get your high school and college students engaged if you have them. It's going to get, people informed about what's going on there. But then also you've got to build support in your communities. And I think community leadership is one of the best way to do that. The state runs some great programs with trust fund dollars there, but you have some communities that say like, well, we have an option to have $300,000 grant for a down payment assistant or purchase rehab resale program. But I'm not sure we can find the $30,000 on our end to come up with that. Let's just let the markets play it out, or let's be cautious. Let's be conservative on this. Just last month we had a new daycare center that was going to open up in our community, and it's a desperate need in McCook, as in many rural areas there, and they needed a special exemption, and the special exemption failed. 2 to 3 on that there, and there were some safety concerns. But I really felt they could have worked a little bit more and made it happen. So for some of these big changes we need in our rural communities, you need strong support and you need progressive leadership to make that happen there. And so when I got to McCook 6 years ago from Sterling, Colorado, I was pumped that they had a community leadership program, because Sterling, Colorado is a town of 12,000 people. They did not have a program like that there. And so, I joined to the college after my first year at the college there. And what I experienced through the Southwest Nebraska leadership is, you had a volunteer board that helped put together. We did some community tours, and we did a community improvement project. And they would find someone to talk about leadership a little bit for the first 45 minutes. But whenever I go through a program, I always think, how would I do that better? How would I change that? And some of the things I saw on our community tours, we kind of went to places that people liked, even if it really wasn't influential in the community, if really didn't dig down deep in some of the issues we had to explore. The leadership training we had was kind of all over place. There wasn't any common thread to it. It was just someone in the community talking about their thoughts on leadership for 30 minutes at the start. And then the community improvement project was, collecting some goods for the food pantry. And that is a really good thing to do in your community. But really, a 7th grade class could take on that community improvement project. If you're going to get together some of the best people, the best young leaders, the best potential leaders in the community, you should really be doing a community improvement project that really moves the community forward, not necessarily something a junior high class could do. Not that they're bad projects, but I think you really got to challenge yourself in there. So one thing I really thought when I came to McCook is I thought, man, we got to have McCook known for leadership. The home of George Norris, one of the top 5 U.S. senators from all time, home of Ben Nelson, governor and senator, 2 other governors, Ralph Brooks and Frank Morrison, are both from McCook. We have this strong history here of strong leadership. And so we wanted strong leadership across the spectrum, not just the community level. So really with that, one of the programs we started was at the high school, and was able to work with the registrar at the high school. And starting this last year, we picked out 15 high school seniors. And in McCook, every Wednesday is an early 2 o'clock out. And then sports practices don't begin until 3:30. And from 2 o'clock to 3:30, the students have time while the teachers and all were in meetings. What we were able to do this last year is the registrar was able to find 15 seniors that had high potential for leadership, involved in the community, and we met every week on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. I'd go over to the high school, work with the registrar. One week, we would use the book Habitudes by Tim Elmore as our curriculum and read through one of the lessons and have discussion about that on leadership and living a life true to yourself. The next week, we would go to one of the major employers in the community. We would go to the hospital. We'd go to American Ag Labs. We'd go to the Parker Hannifin hose manufacturing plant. But it really was exposing these seniors, to all the opportunities that are right here in McCook, and also some of the challenges we see throughout the community. So, it was a really great chance to connect myself with the seniors, 2, connect the seniors to the community, and 3, is the seniors got better at being leaders. That made a difference in our high school. That'll make a difference for them in the college. And we're also planting those hooks that 4 or 5 years from now, we want them back. And I told them the very first time I met, the reason I'm committing this time to it is we want you to consider moving back to McCook when it's the right time for you. So right away, we want to say, leadership's important. You guys in high school are important to us, and we really want to help you grow as leaders there. One thing I think is kind of key to this program is we received funding from our community foundation and the Rotary Club, and we were able to take a trip to Lincoln in the spring. And so it was a really great opportunity because, I mean, these students were selected. They didn't apply for this program, so it was a little bit of an exclusive program that I think gives it a little bit of a prestige. And it was a volunteer program. They had expectations that if they couldn't show up consistently, they couldn't be in the program. But there's no credit, no scholarship, nothing in terms of that. There was a part of that program there. It also helps when you can take a trip to Lincoln and someone can line up a few minutes with Coach Frost while you're there. But it was a really good chance. Had lunch with our state senator, went to an escape room in the afternoon, but just a really good opportunity to say, like, man, in McCook, you can get amazing opportunities. You know, also while we were there, I got a chance to visit with Coach Frost for a couple of minutes. You know, I'm thinking we're going to win a few more games than 4 this year. And, you know, if you just kind of want to know the secret of some of the changes we made, I'm not going to say anything, but I'll just let you look at that picture and see the smiles there. So the high school leadership was the first step. But then along with that, we've also had a first-year college leadership program. And I know that's not an option for all your communities, but we did it with our local community college here. Very similar program. It's about 10 to 15 students, meet once a week, have some leadership curriculum, connect them with the community. And right now, I have a list of about 60 students over the past 6 years that, you know, I send a letter to every year, just giving an update what's going on in McCook, some of the opportunities might be available, and we're hoping it helps us connect with them and helps us bring them back someday. But also it made a difference to college. Many of these students from their first year went on to be leaders in their second year. So it was a big thing. Volunteer basis, no credit, no scholarship attached to it, just a volunteer opportunity for these students. But there was a little bit of an incentive to it as the college paid for them to go on a trip. And we took this group to Chicago for 4 days. And so it was a chance to be a little bit exclusive. And what we found is we were able to get local students that were going to the college that really weren't involved on campus a whole lot, but good students, good kids. We were able to get them more involved in the community and more involved in the college, and they weren't just driving over there, taking some class and going home. I think some of the keys to making these programs work is you need the consistency, meeting about once a week. In the community, you want to find some good presenters that can really connect with the students, because that makes a big difference in how those community visits go there. Make it exclusive. You know, both these programs are invite only. I mean, you can't apply to be in these programs, so I think some people think that might be a drawback, but I think it helps kind of raise the prestige of these programs a little bit. And, you know, if you can have some sort of enticement like a trip or a special opportunity, I think that makes a difference there. So that's what we're doing at the student level. Then at the community level, you know, I've really kind of rethought what I thought a community leadership program should entail. And I was able to work with Cambridge and Binkelman this last year on some community leadership programs, and some of the Southwest Nebraska Leadership Program here in McCook on making some changes to that program. And, you know, if you want to look at the Cadillac of leadership programs in Nebraska right now, I mean, Holt County, their Innovation program, that is an amazing program. I mean, I think that is probably the most elite leadership program in the state right now. What we found out in some of the smaller communities, you know, Cambridge and Binkelman, both towns, about 1,000 people, really think there's 5 keys for this, or even if you're starting a leadership program in your own organization. You know, number 1, I think you have to have some type of consistent curriculum. And there's a lot of material out there. I really like the book, The Leadership Challenge by Coos and Posner. I mean, I think that is good material. But you can use John Maxwell stuff. You can use Tim Elmore book. You can use Servant Leadership. You know, you can pick the leadership book you like or the leadership material you like, but just having that curriculum, make sure it's all encompassing. If you just invite someone different every month to come in and talk, you never have some coherent message on a leadership theory that you're talking about with this group. Second, I think there has to be some opportunity for individuals to learn more about themselves. After working at Gallup, I'm a big fan of the Strengths Finder. And so everybody in these programs that went through, they took the Strengths Finder test. We talked about strengths as a class, but then each individual, we did a one-on-one phone call where we did some strengths feedback individually with these people. And not just with the strengths, but also self-learning is important in terms of reflection and journaling. So in these leadership programs, we read some poetry. You know, we did some programs where it's like gave people a chance to journal and speak in small groups about that. Because most of us tuning in, most of us tied into leadership, they are A-type people. They are go-getters, go, 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 do. And we don't always spend enough time just being. And so that self-leadership, that time for reflection, it's something as leaders that we miss quite a bit. And it's an important piece to make sure we're doing the right thing. Third thing I think you need in terms of a leadership program is you need to do it in community. You know, there's a lot of self-learning, a lot of books you can read by yourself, a lot of podcasts you can listen to. But really, I think when you get a chance to discuss and debate and talk to these issues with other people, I think that adds a lot. You know, I really like programs when they're about 10 to 20 students. And when you do a leadership program, it's important to make sure that there are opportunities for people to talk to each other just to get to know each other, get their thoughts on community, get their thoughts on the different leadership topics. And what I would try and do with the groups is I'd get playing cards and have, 5 sets of 3 of a kind and deal out the cards. And then you had to find your 3 of a kind. So the people in the class were talking to different people every month, because everybody in the group knew a couple people pretty well and some people not a whole lot. If they're really common, then sometimes you don't create all those connections you really can through a leadership program there. Fourth, I really think it's people that apply what they're learning in leadership. I think sometimes you look at leadership programs that have a community improvement project, it's tough. There's sometimes that the community improvement project doesn't end up being really that much of a challenge just because of how busy people are and how much time it takes. Sometimes it's a really simple but good program, and some leadership programs just say, man, we can't fit that in. So we're cutting out the entire part of the community improvement project there. But really, you can read about leadership, talk about leadership, but it's when you get in the trenches. It's when you're in the arena. That's when leadership really is developed. That's when you learn what works, what doesn't. That's when you learn how to connect with other people. That's when you learn about the systems that are in place. And so with these leadership programs, we used a traditional strategic planning process where did a SWOT analysis on the community, did some gap analysis, used some multi-voting techniques. I got to try and fit a few more cliches in here in this regards, but did all these different things to determine a project. And, Binkelman, they're still working on developing a walking trail through their community leadership program. Cambridge, they're having an involvement fair for volunteers this fall, and they're also working on producing a community video. So they really did end up picking projects that really stretched them, and they might not be successful. But you know what? I'm okay with that, because if it actually doesn't work out, and they put a lot of good faith effort into it, it's probably going to be a better learning opportunity, and they pick something simple they could accomplish easily. So I think it's important you have some way to apply what you're learning. Fifth, I really think it's important that you do learn more about the organization, that you do learn more about the community. And a lot of community programs have the community tours as a main focus. I think that's very important to keep into it, but really have a purpose for the places you're visiting. How do they affect the local economy? How do they affect the local people? And then bring in outside speakers. We had Ashley Rice-Gerlach from the Department of Economic Development come. We had Ben Dutton from Community Vitality Youth Extension. We had Nebraska Small Business Development come, and we had people from the ESU come speak to these groups. And so, we not just got to meet more people in the community and some of the important businesses and players, we also brought people that have resources to that community from outside that community. And so it's really important to kind of aware what's out there. If you look at what some communities are doing of CDBG grants, it's just fantastic. But if you aren't even aware it's out there, or you don't have someone that's looking into that sort of stuff, that's an opportunity that your community might be missing completely. So I really think it's important that a leadership program has those 5 features: a curriculum, self-learning, a community experience, applying what you're learning, and learning more about the community or the organization you're a part of there. In McCook, we're doing something new here this year that we just got approved and we just got kicked off. And one thing I wanted to mention there on the Binkelman, when we did the community tours, we also toured the house that Binkelman did with West Central. And it's one of the first homes they built in Binkelman in about the last 20 years, but to get that support for programs like that, which can be confusing, you got to know about it and you got to kind of experience it. So as a part of those organizational tours, you can really show what is possible. Also visit some of the key businesses here in Cambridge. We're visiting Pinpoint, and what an amazing rural telecommunications company that has become out of Cambridge there. So it's a really key piece there. The new program we're starting in McCook, I'm so excited about that program. I I'm too far in front there, but we did get comments and did do survey evaluations into these community leadership programs. People like seeing the businesses. They like being a part of the community. They like talking about how we can make it better. They enjoy getting to know the people better and talking with them on an intimate basis. In our communities, we're probably Facebook friends with everybody, but it's been a long time unless you're in a group like this, you have a conversation about what are we going to do to make our community better 10 years from now. And it did get people involved. We had people that stepped up on the chamber board. We had more involvement in the Rotary Club in these communities. So it did make a difference in what we really wanted to have happen. So in McCook, we've kicked off a Leadership 2.0 program. And so these are people that have already kind of gone through a general community education program. We're looking for people that are kind of in their 30s and their 40s that, they're into some sort of leadership position. And we're looking for people that are going to be senior leaders in the future. So in this picture here, we have two people that are small business owners. We have the lead pastor of one of our largest churches. We got a vice president of our hospital. And then we got the lady that runs our community foundation program. So we got people that are the movers and shakers. This group is meeting every other month for the next 18 months. So they'll meet 9 times. Out of those 9 times, 5 of the meetings, they're going to be locally here. We're going to cover leadership topics. And then we're going to really dig in to our biggest community institutions. Instead of learning and doing a tour of the city offices, we're sitting down with the city manager for an hour and a half and digging into the budget. How's the city funded? What are its responsibilities? We're going to sit down at the county. We're going to sit down at the hospital and really dig into these key institutions. Because if you look at a lot of rural communities, the city, the county, the public school, the hospital, those are huge institutions. Now we're going to talk with ag lenders and get into deep about how the ag economy is doing and how it affects the rest of the community. So it's a chance to go deeper in here and really develop these people so when they step into the city council, when they become county commissioners, they have the background. They aren't spending a year or two figuring out the budget, Robert's Rules of Orders, but they're able to step in and start moving right ahead. The other 4 times we meet, we're going places. To kick off the program. And I saw a few people on the chat box from Dakota Resources, and we brought the group up to Rural X, and that was an amazing experience. They had great speakers, great topics, loved the format, but it was so neat to go to a conference like that with a couple small business owners, with a couple people involved in leadership positions at our biggest organizations. Because it wasn't just economic development and chamber people talking about moving the community forward, but it was the people that are employing people. And I'm an economic development person, but it was a wide variety of people that you just want to pull into these conversations because they kind of have their fillers out what's going on in the community there. We're going to go to Lincoln, visit with our state senator. There's one location we haven't decided we're going to pick as we go, but then in November we're planning to go on to the Nebraska Community Foundation annual meeting. So it's really a chance for them to learn deeply about what we're doing locally here and going out and seeing what other people are doing to really open their eyes on the opportunity. So it's really taking these people a step deeper into that leadership path so that they're ready to go there. One of the first organizations that went through one of these leadership programs as we kind of envisioned it is a Megan Spargo with Binkelman. And Megan, I'm going to turn over to you if you want to talk a little bit about your experience going through this leadership program.
Sure. Thanks, Andy. I was just thinking about this yesterday, and good leadership is really what brought us to Binkelman. My husband was kind of unhappy where he was working at a school up in Alliance, and we weren't just going to leave to leave. We really needed to go somewhere. And so he knew the principal here at DCS, some other places, and knew that he was a stand-up guy, great character, and that it was somebody he wanted to work for and be on the same team with. And that's something that brought us down. So it's just another way that leadership really carries into even the recruitment and retainment of young professionals. I like to call myself young into the town. The leadership program that Andy put on in Binkelman was super beneficial for a couple reasons. Number one, taking us through the curriculum. A lot of us have heard some of the concepts thrown around on a surface level, like modeling the way, having courage, and coming across people with different viewpoints with you, with curiosity rather than judgment. If you're in this role, you're going to get a lot of pushback for a lot of the different ideas you have, and sometimes it's easy to really want to push back, but kind of approaching it with curiosity to what really led this person to think about that. And so this program gave us the time and the space to, number one, go introspective and gain some self-awareness of yourself and talk to other leaders about that. And then a platform for which to apply all these concepts that we were learning. It was kind of just like a mastermind of people kind of growing together in leadership. Andy mentioned going to different businesses, and that did a couple things also. So he essentially brought in a whole bunch of community advocates. A lot of us either kind of tell ourselves stories about why, you know, the city or the county or the hospital or the schools are run the way they are, based on our perception of things, or sometimes even based on what other people say. And so we were able to really pull back the curtain, take a look into it down, you know, into really what was happening, into how they operate, what their roles were, and really like seeing the challenges they face. And so you're bringing up these leaders who are looking through the lenses of so many different people. And, you know, if we're going to elect people into new offices, having them, you know, really looking behind what had happens with our local businesses, what the challenges they face, or the hospital, whatever it really is, I thought is gold. When we start to hear people complaining about the school or the hospital, we have these people there that are able to say, you know what, I went and talked with them. This is really what I see happening, and kind of approach it from more of an educated place. So, man, those were kind of the main points that I saw, you know, aside from just, you know, passing the baton from one generation of leaders to the next. It was really creating those connections, looking behind the curtain at what's really happening in your community, becoming an advocate, and that self-development piece, I think, was really key. So I'd love to see this keep happening, and I think it's a really long-term way to set your community up for success, for sure.
So I've just got, thanks, Megan.
Yeah.
Just a few things to kind of point out is, you know, if you're saying, well, what's this program look like? What are the sessions? What are topics you talk about? What's your schedule you use with the high school or the college group? You know, so my webpage is cultivateruralleaders.com, which is the nonprofit 501c3 I run on the side, Cultivate Rural Leaders. But there's a resources page on there. And this year I'm working on putting all the resources I use in all these leadership programs. And so if you're looking for community leadership programs, material, information you want to use, you know, you should be able to go to that webpage, the Cultivate Rural Leaders. I lost my screen. Can you still see me?
I'm afraid
Yes.
that was my fault, Andy. I was trying to type in the Cultivate Rural Leaders in the chat box for everybody.
Okay. That sounds good. Sounds good. But can you see me and hear me okay still?
Yes.
The cultivateruralleaders.com, there's a resources page. You can subscribe to my monthly blog on Cultivate Rural Leaders about rural leadership too. But, you know, before we get into some of the questions, I want to leave with the story of Charles Simeon. And Charles Simeon, you know, became in charge of the Holy Trinity Anglican Church in Cambridge. And he really didn't like the direction the church was going. And so, you know, really presented some new ideas to the church, had some new ways he wanted to do things. The local church, the congregation he had, they were not into it at all. They're like, nope, this is the way we do things. This is the way we're going to do things. So he said, I really want to change the culture of this church. So what he started to do is he started going to Cambridge University, which is right close by there, and he started meeting with the students over there. He got together different groups that he had speaking tours over there. He had dinner clubs. He had an inner circle of 3 or 4 people that he really worked to mentor and really worked to develop. And he did this over 54 years. And in that time, he had equipped and placed 1,100 young people as leaders in the Church of England. But he really did that 3 or 4 people at a time. And if you really look, we've got to be developing our people in our rural communities to move forward. You know, it's like, if you look, like I said, it's a different time period. You know, you go down your main streets, they look different than what they did 30 years ago. You look at some of the things we face with healthcare costs, with insurance, with reimbursement to our nursing homes, with how difficult it is to get rural housing. I mean, we got to try some new things. We got to take some chances out there, and some of them are going to fail. And so if you have those strong leaders, you can learn from that and move on. If you don't, when some of those projects fail, people step back and say, well, we tried that once, we can't do that again. So it's really important that has happened. You know, I saw a couple of the questions talking about youth leadership programs. There's a lot of different directions you can go with youth leadership. I saw Cynthia's on here that, she does amazing work with the Rotary Ryla camp there. I mean, it's amazing the amount of work they put in to make that happen, where you have Rotary clubs sponsoring youth to go up to Halsey every summer and meet each other and learn about leadership there. And we took 5 kids from McCook last year, and only 3 of them had to go to the ER as a part of the camp there, but they all had a great time, even the ones that came home with stitches there. You look generally, your student council, your FCCLA, your FFA, I mean, all of these programs have their own leadership programs. I think the thing sometimes they miss, though, is that community connection. And so if you want to start a high school leadership program where you connect with a group of students, one, you got to find a supporter inside the school system. You know, their metrics are different than our metrics. They are measured on 11th grade, 8th grade, and 4th grade test scores. And so sometimes we say, well, why is the school more involved in the community? That's because that's not how they're graded. You know, the newspaper articles that come out, they're about test scores. And so that's where their focus is. That's what the state and the nation's asking for them there. So you got to find someone on the inside, whether it's a teacher, whether it's a counselor, and they're going to help find the right students for you. Then you find a time that works for them. You know, for this group, 2 o'clock on Wednesday is a perfect time for us. You know, other groups, I think you can meet over lunch, or some groups you might be able to meet right before school if you have the right group there. But as a part of that, then, have your leadership curriculum involved, and then find some ways to connect them with some of the leaders in the community. I talked with a few seniors that went through this program, and they really enjoy meeting people in the community. They really enjoy seeing other opportunities out there. It's tough to fit in their schedule, but you can make it work. And if you want to talk more about that further down the road, my contact information's there. Feel free to get a hold of me, but we'll just, I guess, open this up to other questions right now.
Okay. Thanks, Andy. I just had a quick question as others are beginning to kind of formulate theirs, and you touched on it, but barriers. What barriers did you encounter from older generations? You really touched on when you said that won't work in our community. How did you address those barriers? And what somebody who's wanting to start this program but just not really sure, how can they achieve success when they encounter some of that negative Nelly talk in their community?
You know, at Rule X, we heard Deb and Becky from Savior Town, and there's always going to be detractors, and you just got to remember, sometimes there's going to be dogs barking, but the train keeps on moving. And so don't spend your time worrying about the dogs that are barking. You know, find the people that want to hop on the train, go with you. And generally when it comes to leadership programs, I have found there's generally not a whole lot of opposition to that. I mean, I think everybody really likes the idea of bringing in the next generation of leaders, of trying to help develop leaders. And when you want to start a program locally, I've generally never really found money to be the issue. I mean, whether it's economic development, a community foundation, or Rotary Club, local businesses, you can generally, if you have a good plan, you can generally find people to do it. I think one of the biggest challenges in some rural communities is finding 12 to 15 people that would commit to going through the program, making the time for it, carving out of their schedule. And so you really got to kind of get some of the employers on board first. They're saying, man, we're going to let our employees have, this is going to be a part of their duties, and we're going to really encourage them to be a part of this. Let's find ways to work with small businesses so they can be a part of it there. So I think that's the biggest challenge is finding the people that are willing to commit to the program and be a part of it the whole way through.
Okay, Okay. Is there a criteria? I got a message. Is there a criteria for selecting students at the high school level?
In our program, our registrar is really pretty tied in with the community and with the school and the students. And so I just let her pick the students and invite them. You could do a different criteria. A lot of those students are all in a club called Interact, which is a kind of a Rotary-based youth leadership service club. And so we do kind of tie it into our Rotary Club with an Interact Club. And I think that's a really good way if you're a part of a Rotary to get involved at the high school level. It also helps you select the students that you know are going to participate, that show up, that are of strong character. But, generally when you find that, in every school you can find people that are really passionate about the community and connecting students with the community. And they're generally going to know the students are going to be a good fit for a program like this.
Okay, thank you. Well, if you have, Levi, go ahead.
I just, one of the comments, I don't remember which Gallup person brought it up, but he said something to the effect that there's no correlation between how well somebody can spell in a spelling competition, how well that correlates to them starting their own business and being successful. You're a Fortune 500. And so that's kind of funny about the, what qualities you're looking for. And does that, just how does that, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, trying to see the diamonds in the roughs and things like that.
That's tough. Because I really think the most important characteristic you're looking for is character. And this is a whole different topic, but I listened to a podcast by the name of Craig Rochelle that talks about leadership, and he ends every podcast saying people would rather follow a leader that is, I just blew it. People would rather follow a leader that's always, I'm going to have to come back to it. But the whole idea is people want to follow those that are true to themselves, that are genuine, that live the life of who they're meant to be there. The leaders isn't always the person that's the loudest. Generally, I found in a lot of organizations, it's the person that's connected one-on-one has the most influence with other people. So, I think if you find people that have strong character, you find people that connect well to other students, those are the students you really want in a program like this. It may not be the 4.0 that is able to complete every assignment exactly like the teacher wants it there. So a little bit of it is trying to find those students that they may not get all these academic awards. They might not even, they might not be one of the top athletes there, but it's a student that has strong character and can connect with other students.
Okay. Well, if you have questions for Andy or Megan, feel free to open your microphone or use the chat box. We will gladly pass those along, and they're seeing your questions as well. Have you seen some return on the investment, either in Bengelman? What are some success stories that you might come to mind for either of you as you've worked with leadership programs?
From my viewpoint, a couple that I saw immediately, it was, in Bengelman, we did a tour of the Hester Memorial Home, which is a nursing home locally, and then someone from that group joined that board in a matter of 2 to 3 months. I think that was really an exciting thing to see that they're being developed. In the Cambridge group, there was 2 people that joined the chamber board. That was kind of a direct result of being a part of this group and learning more about the community. And at the end of August, they're doing an involvement fair in Cambridge. And so, this group came together and said, man, we've got to get more people involved in the community. So they developed a fun activity, a fun event that's going to get more people connected. So you do see people participating in this, get involved in the community, joining boards, and being part of it. Megan, is there anything else you want to add on that?
Not really. I just know with our community project, I think we're bringing in some people that haven't really been involved in that type of work before. For me, it's just kind of nice to have a new additional team to work on some projects with, for sure.
Okay.
I just think that behind the scenes, having those more people to have a better understanding of how our community works on those essential business organizations like the hospital, the school, the local governments.
Okay.
You know,
Having more
John mentioned it
engaged.
up in Holt County, they have the high school students go through the community leadership, and that's fantastic. You know, because that connects them with other adults that are becoming leaders in that program. That's a great practice. I'm curious more about the Youth Engaged in Leading Phelps County program.
Yes, that's a program here in Holdridge. Sherry had a daughter that went through that, and as a result, we have a Backpack Blessings program here in town for our middle schoolers and elementary, I believe. Sherry, do you have anything you want to add to that?
My youngest daughter was involved the very first year of the program, and I know it has evolved and changed since then. They start the program, they interview, they have to apply and interview for the program. They do that in their sophomore year, and then they start the program in January of their sophomore year, and it runs through December of their junior year. And then they have all the way until they graduate to implement their program. And it's kind of a collaborative effort. I believe the foundation's involved, the chamber, the extension office, businesses here locally kind of sponsor, and a business is mentored with a student. They pair them up. My daughter was mentored with a personal banker here, actually downstairs in our office. And that first year, they had a lot of amazing projects come out of that, but they also saw that these are the top kids in the class, and we maybe spread them a little thin that first year. And so I do know that it has evolved, and it was really a huge collaboration. And I think that was probably the biggest thing, was that they all collaborated to do that with the kids. So it was interesting. And her Backpack Blessings program, she'll be a senior in college. So the Ministerial Association here in town took it on from her, and I still help with all the fundraising. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
McCook has another program called Youth Change Reaction, and the Community Foundation's involved with that. They select 3 students as freshmen, and they go through the program for all 4 years. It's a group of 12 students, but you have a couple community members and a teacher that helps sponsor that group. And they really ask that group of students, what do you want to see in McCook? And then as a group, they work to do it. And sometimes it's small things like, they sponsored watching Jaws at the YMCA pool. They do inflatable movies. They do just a variety of different activities, but it's really a chance for students. To make the change they want to see in the community. And I think that just helps them get involved.
Okay.
One thing that they did do with the kids is there was buy-in by the school. And so these kids met once a month on a Wednesday morning. They were out of school for the entire Wednesday morning once a month. And so it was a 4-hour block of time. And they rotated between Holdridge, Loomis, and Bertrand with the kids. And we had to sign consent forms for them to travel because they drove themselves there, And so it was a great experience for her, and it's been great for our elementary school here in Holdridge.
Good.
I hope a few people respond to Mike's question. He just posted in the group chat there, because that's a fantastic question, and you'll probably get part of how we do our selection just a matter of how much time we have. So it's maybe not as thorough as it should be, but I think if you can really find. If you can find a really diverse group to be a part of that program, I found when we had that group of 15 seniors this last year, there's a couple that were really good, a couple different groups of good fans, with some groups that they were not necessarily people that hang out together. And one thing they enjoyed, they ended up feeling like a safe space for the different groups of people. So when you can get a diverse group and you can generally find those people that are going to be fantastic leaders, but generally don't stand out based on how we handle our academics, our athletics in our school. That's a great opportunity for them to really connect with another group of students and really develop that.
Okay. Yes, Mike, thank you for that question. John mentioned that he really likes the 2.0 idea that you mentioned, I believe, Andy, that following up with graduates of the original program and kind of continuing that engagement with each other and that tight-knit group that was formed. So Good. Earlier in the chat box, Derek mentioned that he would be interested in connecting with people who already had high school youth leadership programs. So feel free to use that chat box to give Derek your information if you would be interested in chatting with him, talking with him. He's from the York area, I believe. So that's part of the purpose of HomeNE, is just connecting local people with each other. I know Megan's been doing some conversation with Raquel, I believe, on some different topics, and they would never actually meet each other probably because they're from different parts of the state. But so reach out to Derek, Mike, anybody who can offer something along the questions that they're having today. So
Lori, can I
yes.
ask Andy an off-topic question?
Okay.
Is that allowed?
Maybe.
I have never run the beer mile in 4 minutes.
Ever since you said Rural X, my mind instantly went towards the menu that I saw on their Facebook, the Native American menu. Did you get to eat that?
It is delicious. Fantastic. You know, it's
I saw that and I pulled it up. I don't know how to pronounce those words, but wild green salad and wild game stew with forest mushrooms, cedar maple tea. Yeah, I was just curious. I wanted to hear how that was, but
so
that's all, Lori.
Okay, so maybe Paula and Mike could just give us a 30-second or 2-minute elevator speech on Rural X and what they did up there, and maybe even their menu if they're still on with us.
This is Mike, and I would just share that we had a chef participate who is Native American, and he prepared foods that were all things that you can find in a field, all things that you could find in that area around you, which really created a unique experience. I like some of the food better than other parts, but overall I can't agree more with Andy. It was just a great experience.
Okay. And Rural X is South Dakota's version of maybe what we're doing or beginning to do with our gatherings. Is that a fair assessment, Mike?
Paula?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're doing in your gatherings. This brings in about 150 people. This is the 4th year we've done it. 150 people from around the United States and Canada. And it's really about connecting what we call rural shapers, who are anybody that is really interested in helping their community thrive.
Okay.
That can be around the arts, it can be around housing, it can be around economic development, whatever that is that helps your community thrive. And then we just create lots of space for them to connect.
Okay,
and next year we won't plan it on the same day as your housing gathering.
Well, unfortunately, we planned over you because of weather, but, yeah, so Paula has put the link to ruralx.org in the chat box, so take a look at that, and maybe we can have a contingency of Nebraskans invade South Dakota next year. So as we start to wind down today, what was one item of interest that maybe really jumped out at you as the attendees today? Does anybody have any thoughts that they'd like to share either through the chat box or by opening their microphone?
This is Paula. I'm really excited that you're engaging your youth in a big way like that. That's exciting and something I would love to see happen in my state.
Okay, thank you, Paula. What else? What is one step that somebody might be willing to take to begin implementing some of the information that Andy and Megan shared with us today? I think reaching out to each other would be a good first step. Mike said hosting the youth leadership programs during early outs, excuse me. So good. So, well, I want to thank all of you for joining us today. Our thanks to Andy and Megan. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, how can they do that? Either one of you or both of you?
McCook Economic Development Corporation. It's Andy at McCookAny.org, or on Cultivate Rural Leaders, the webpage. My phone number, email is all right there. So if you have additional questions, if you want resources, let me know. Megan, you want to give them your contact information? Then I'll close with a poem.
I'll put my stuff up on the chat box for everyone.
Okay. While she's doing that, once again, thank you to both of you. I just want to tell you briefly about our next gathering, which will be here in Holdridge in November, on November 7th and 8th. Phelps County Development Corporation will be joining us and sharing some of their housing successes that they have implemented here, and that will be held at the Phelps County Community Foundation. So be watching for that registration. And then our webinar next month, I'm really excited, we'll be having individuals from Nebraska Investment Finance Authority talking about programs that will stimulate housing in your community. So I know that Robin Ambrose and Sarah Dakota will be joining us, as well as perhaps a couple more NIFA staff members. So they will be here on August 15th at 2 o'clock for our next webinar. So with that, once again, thank you to Megan and Andy. I know that Megan has put her contact information there in the chat box. Jessica from Holdridge has shared hers. Dina says she's going to contact the local Rotary Club on starting an Interact Club. So thank you, Dina, for sharing that. So, and Andy, you had a poem that you wanted to share?
I shared this yesterday, but there's a lot of people on here that weren't here yesterday, and it's called Always We Hope. Always we hope someone else has the answer. Some other place will be better. Some other time it will all turn out. This is it. No one else has the answer. No other place will be better. And it has already turned out. At the center of your being, you have the answer. You know who you are, and you know what you want. There's no need to run outside for better seeing, nor to peer from a window. Rather, abide at the center of your being. For the more you leave it, the less you learn. Search your heart and see. The way to do is to be. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. With that, are there any last questions or comments from anyone? Great discussion. I appreciate everybody attending, and thanks for joining us, and have a great rest of the day. Okay?
Thanks.
Thank you so much.